the things we're watching out for is the impact of tapering and subsequently higher rates on EM. On economies, on sovereigns, on corporates as well. A good thing to start talking about is vulnerability or exposure. And we were talking offline a couple of seconds ago, and I asked you, who has the highest level of foreign ownership of their sovereign bonds? And you said Indonesia is top of the list.
Yeah,
1/3, 33%.
Correct. And we are talking about local currency bonds, by the way. The second largest is in Malaysia, but we have to distinguish between these two markets because the size of the market in Indonesia is much smaller than in Malaysia, meaning that if there's something happening outside that led to the foreign ownerships affected, that is, if the foreigners left the country, Indonesian market is more vulnerable than in Malaysia.
Indeed, because I mean the Malaysian market is deeper and more liquid, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm not sure how much work the ADB has done, but the real fear, of course, is exactly what you pointed out, that as rates start to subsequently go up, maybe spring of 2015, maybe later, who knows, right? That there could be a huge rush, an exodus of foreign money out of these sovereign bonds, which could push inflation higher and cause rates to spike.
That's true.
So is it these foreign ownership levels that we should be looking at, or other metrics as well?
Oh, other metrics. Definitely the first thing that we always recommend to the officials is to enlarge the domestic investor space. Because, you know, if you have a high percentage of foreign ownerships, the way you do is not you lower it by, you know, preventing the foreign ownerships or foreign investors coming in, but by increasing the local. Exactly. So that's what we are strongly recommending it.
All right. And what about fundamentals? I mean, obviously, countries that are running sound and prudent economic policies would stand a better chance of keeping that foreign money in, no?
Absolutely. Yeah. But here, we are a little bit more optimistic because the events in summer last year, you still remember the QE tapering discussion, that affects the market very badly. But precisely because of that event, policymakers in the region realized that they had to be for sort of more serious in terms of dealing with the macro fundamentals. So in general, basically, they have been a little bit more complacent before the May 2013.
So they got the wake-up call.
Exactly, the wake-up call. So
and how would the ADB, without putting the ADB on the spot too much, I mean, how would you rate their performance since that wake-up call? Who, for example, has taken the bitter medicine of actually easing back on subsidies?
Absolutely, it is a good news because if you look at the Q4 of last year, the last quarter, and the first quarter of this year up to March 7, because our information is up to March 7 this year, definitely the market has improved, especially in Indonesia. So Indonesian government did a lot of improvement since May last year. And from that standpoint, we were a little bit more optimistic than last year.